Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Martz, and I am the Director of Global Member Development at Kiwanis International. I work very closely with Brad Boyd, your area director, and he cannot be with you this morning. He is traveling around to other districts as well. He kind of laughed and said that Missouri, Arkansas has probably heard enough from him, so maybe a new voice would be great to hear from. So hopefully that is the case. I have been employed by Kiwanis International for 11 years. 7 of those, I was the director of Circle K. I'm an 18-year Kiwanian, and I have served every club office except club secretary. And I've done 2 terms as club president, and I've done 2 terms as lieutenant governor. So I'm very proud that besides working at Kiwanis, I've also been a volunteer and a leader in the organization. So during this workshop, and really any of the workshops I do, I tend to talk kind of fast, and I hopefully will give you a lot of great information. Hopefully we will get through everything that I have ready to present to you today. But hopefully you're just going to walk away from here with a lot of ideas. So one of the things I would like to do is utilize the chat today. So if you would make sure that you can see the chat, I want to ask you a question. What do you think post-pandemic Kiwanis will look like? And if you can all just jot your gut reaction to that question in the chat, that would be awesome. So again, the question is, what do you think post-pandemic Kiwanis will look like? And I'm not going to read all of these. It will. I ask that you kind of just look to see what your fellow Kiwanians are saying about post-pandemic Kiwanis. I always love using the chat feature when I'm giving a presentation because it's so difficult for everyone to unmute and talk at the same time, but everyone can kind of see what people are thinking very quickly. Awesome. I really enjoy some of these responses. We're going to use the chat feature one more time, at least during this presentation. So I want to start with this analogy, and you probably were wondering, why did Chris put jumper cables on the first slide? Well, I've put them on every slide because I really want you to think about jumper cables and Kiwanis. Think about when you are charging a car that is dead and the process that you need to go through. You can't immediately charge a dead battery. You all know that you need to find the battery cables. Some of you probably need to reacquaint yourself with which is the positive and which is the negative. You need to connect the cables correctly. You start the working car, but you don't start the dead car immediately. You let the working car do the work and charge the dead battery of the other car. And then you try starting the dead car. Sometimes it works in the first try, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you have to try the process again. So everything that we do in Kiwanis is sort of like charging a dead battery, and it's going to be very true post-pandemic. So first of all, people need to reconnect. You need to reconnect to your SLPs. You need to reconnect to everything that we do in Kiwanis. You probably have that excited member or someone who's the change agent in your club who can charge up everyone else and get them really excited. And sometimes it takes a while. You can't immediately change a Kiwanis club. You can't immediately excite everyone. And then you try it. And then sometimes you have to attempt it again because the first try did not work. So again, we're going to utilize the chat feature again. And I want you to answer this question based on how you feel about your current Kiwanis battery. So what part of your Kiwanis battery is not fully charged right now? What part are you missing? Maybe it's not completely dead, but what part is not fully charged in your Kiwanis battery? Throw some ideas in the chat feature. I see some good ones. I see some people missing, volunteering in schools. So true. I am my club's builders club advisor. Totally miss going into the schools. Connections, engagement with clubs, bring up grades. Thank you all for sharing. Keep sharing. These are great. I hope you're all watching some of these things. A lot of you are missing the same things. Excellent. Feel free to continue to share as we go on. So what could use a little extra charge in your Kiwanis Club? And these are basically the three things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about members returning to in-person and in-person meetings and service projects. We're going to talk about continued support for our service leadership programs. And we're going to chat about recruiting and onboarding new members. So those are the three main topics that we are going to talk about today. So we're going to start with member engagement. And I put a little fun coffee mug here that says Zoom fatigue. And I want to talk about Zoom fatigue a little bit. When we go back to in-person meetings, you're probably going to hear me say the word hybrid a lot. I don't believe that many Kiwanis clubs will return to 100% in-person events. We are going to have to think about how to include other members who cannot get to the meetings. And this is going to be our new normal. But let's talk a little bit about Zoom fatigue, just so you understand, because many of you, maybe all of you, are suffering from Zoom fatigue. So according to Nielsen, who, obviously they used to do all the TV ratings and now they've moved into the online platform, our overall screen time has spiked to 13 hours a day. And that is an average across the board of all ages. 13 hours a day on a screen. And that can be any screen, your phone, computer screen, tablets. That is a lot of time on the screen. Our online consumption of information has doubled in the past year. So a year ago, we got some online information. Now, 365 days later, our online consumption has doubled. That is why our screen time has also doubled. Now, when you think about joining your Kiwanis Club meeting virtually, think about what you are doing. Many of you are multitasking. You're not fully engaged in your Kiwanis Club. So many times, you'll have 5 or more tabs opened, or you'll have several applications open when you start the Zoom meeting. And also, the brain just gets tired. Not only is there the strain of the screen lighting, the reduced physical activity, and really there's no commute time to your club to kind of just, get some fresh air and kind of think about things. But your brain also is processing hundreds of images during a club meeting. All those little pictures of the people joining your meeting, as well as any PowerPoint slides, anything else that is going on. there's a lot going on that your brain has to process. Now, I have a lot of solutions to Zoom fatigue, and I'll be happy to share those if we have time at the end, but we're gonna kind of go on to member engagement. So some of the things to think about. So transitioning back to in-person events. Again, I mentioned hybrid. We need to remember everyone in our club, especially those people who cannot come to our in-person meetings. And really, when I say meetings, I also mean service projects and I mean fundraising events. So how do you include those virtual meetings, virtual members into your meetings? You really need to make the meetings worth the members returning. Um, Rethink everything. Really be cautious of returning to the old way. And in one of my Zoom fatigue workshops, um, I mentioned that I think the biggest issue with when Kiwanis clubs went online is if you had an hour-long club meeting, people went to an hour-long virtual club meeting. And sometimes that's a little too long. If we were in person today, I bet this workshop would be a 45 or a 50-minute workshop. But in the virtual world, it is much better to do this in 25 or 30 minutes. So you can think about those type of things. Don't forget your service projects in meetings. That is going to be really important if your Kiwanis Club has not done a service project in the last year, or maybe you've done very few. You may have to think about ways that you can incorporate more service. And if you can do some hands-on um, in-meeting service projects, that would be great. And of course, just like Stu mentioned earlier, following your local guidelines, very important to returning to meetings. Also, think about social. Um, Continue to get to know your members. Think about all the things that you've learned about your members while they've been on Zoom all of these months. Um, you know, I was talking to one Kiwanis club president, and they started a whole speaker series just based on their members. Because when they first started meeting in person, they started learning really interesting things about people. There was a painting hanging behind one lady on her Zoom meeting, and someone said, "That's a really cool painting. Where did you get it?" And she said, "I painted it." They didn't know that they had an artist in their club. And so they started doing these hobby presentations. And even one member took the club out into his woodworking workshop in his garage, positioned his camera, and showed them how he did woodworking. They did not know that this man did this skill. So I really empower you to continue getting to know your members. Have fun. Kiwanis does not have to be all business. Um, One of the things that I kind of came up with the idea, and I've given this idea to many clubs, and some are starting to utilize it, are porch gatherings. What a great way for a hybrid meeting. Now, you need a couple things. First of all, you need someone with a good outdoor space, probably someone with a large deck or patio, and someone with good internet that's able to bring their laptop and their webcam outdoors so that um, the virtual participants can join as well. But it's a great way to do a socially distanced, healthy Kiwanis club. So think about those type of things, especially if you are not ready to meet in person. Um, my Kiwanis club is simply not ready to meet in person because our venue closed while the pandemic was in full force, and it's not going to reopen. So those are some challenges that clubs are going to have to face as well. So again, think about trying something new. Be creative with your meetings, your service projects, all your fundraisers, all your socials, and really find innovative ways to engage your members. This whole concept of a hybrid meeting, I know that you've all figured this out, but a hybrid meeting is that merging of a face-to-face meeting with a virtual meeting. And how can you keep people engaged when they may just be a virtual person? These are some suggestions that I used for virtual club meetings, but they also work in hybrid meetings. So for a couple meetings, I have sent out these envelopes, very similar to this picture, do not open. And it would say, do not open until Kiwanis Club meeting this date. And I've also done this for a couple conferences as well. I dealt a poker hand to everyone, random 5 cards. We actually just gave a prize to the person who had the best poker hand. Now that was something that we did all virtually, but it could easily be done in a hybrid approach. I also got this was probably the best $13 investment. Bingo cards. I got 50 bingo cards and these chips. Sent bingo cards and chips to everyone. And we were able to play bingo virtually. Also think about all of the 50-50 drawings you may have, any raffles that you have each club meeting. Maybe think about having those virtual participants who can't attend the in-person meeting pre-purchase some tickets. Maybe they pre-purchase tickets for the next 5 meetings. So think about how to continuously engage them. So let's move on to your service leadership programs. And sorry, there's so much text on this PowerPoint, but I wanted to give you a lot of ideas here. Re-engaging our service leadership programs is going to be very important. It is going to be important to focus on these clubs because many of them have not met this past year. Maybe you're going to have to re-engage them in Key Club, Circle K, all the SLPs. Maybe besides re-engaging them, maybe you're just going to have to reintroduce them. I know that's going to be the case in my Builders Club. They are not going to meet until the start of next school year. It's a 2-year middle school. We will have lost almost all of our members. And so it's going to be very important to reintroduce that school to Builders Club. Make sure that you think about what financial obligations you have to your service leadership programs. And I know so many times when we think about sponsorship, we think about the financial commitment. But maybe you should start thinking about, instead of dues and fees, what other budgetary needs are your SLP clubs going to need post-pandemic? And I would make a commitment to them that if they can come up with their dues and fees, that you may help them with their service projects, that you may also help them with their fundraising programs. So think about that. They still need buy-in in the program. How can you make an SLP make an impact in their school or in their community? Really help them. How can you mentor them? And if you are reconnecting with an SLP club, perhaps you need to do it in a small group. Hopefully you are interclubbing with them now. Maybe you're inviting them to your virtual meetings. Maybe they are inviting you to their virtual meetings. Hopefully if you are a Kiwanis advisor, you are attending those meetings if the SLP is meeting. But maybe you need to have a leadership retreat where the president, secretary, treasurer, the board members of your Kiwanis Club meet with the president, secretary, treasurer, the board members of that SLP club, and just kind of bounce some ideas off of each other. So think about having a leadership retreat with each of your SLPs and the officers. Think about joint service projects and fundraisers, sharing sharing ideas for what it's going to be like post pandemic, what you can and can't do in your communities. Think about that. Think about timing. We are, almost to the halfway point of March, and we have seniors who are thinking about graduation. So, how can you honor those graduating members of Circle K or Key Club? And I would even consider if that Key Club has not met in the past year, those seniors were still members for a time of Key Club. Think about how you can honor them. That is very important. Also, as you're thinking about reintroducing or re-engaging people to the SLP programs, make sure that you're inviting the faculty advisors, school principals, superintendents to join your meetings. Hopefully they're members, but make sure that you are engaging them. And I would always say to invite faculty members for membership. We're lucky in my club because we've had the administrative fundraisers to pay the dues for our faculty advisors so that they feel very connected to Kiwanis. But make sure that even if that club is not meeting, that you are engaging that faculty advisor so that you can connect them with Kiwanis and make sure that they know that Kiwanis is ready to help that SLP when we get back to normalcy. Let's talk a little bit about new members as well. My whole thing and my job is, membership, engagement, and education of new members. So we know that obviously recruiting is very, very important. During this virtual time, I really hope that you've thought about inviting past members and guests to your club. People's lives have changed. People have, definitely talked about how they have time to do service, and that is important. But when you start getting back into your in-person events, make sure that every event is a membership event. Also think about previous speakers that you may have had. Onboarding new members is so important. And what I would say is that you need to engage new members faster than you ever did before the pandemic. New member engagement is so key, but think about how to even do it quicker. What are their interests? Why did they join Kiwanis? Make sure that they are connected immediately to a project or event that they are going to love. Communication tools. This was one of the things that I was asked to talk about, and I think that this is very key in new member engagement and acquiring new members. So social media really does work when you use it properly to recruit new members. So I'm going to give you a few tips. First of all, hopefully all of you, if your club has a social media page like Facebook, you've liked that page. If your club does not have a Facebook page, Kiwanis International is available to help you get those pages started. There is a great resource if you go to kiwanis.org/brand and click on social media. you are going to learn so many things about how to start a social media page, and we're there to help. We've given you a lot of starter um, posts, videos, photos, a lot of great things that you can use. So, first of all, like your page. Then invite all of your friends to like your Kiwanis page as well. If they like you, they know that you're involved in Kiwanis. Now, here's the great thing. Your friend doesn't have to be in Arkansas. Your friend can be in California. Why is this important? Well, it increases the footprint of your club. So when you create events on your Facebook page, you created a fundraiser, perhaps that friend in California is very passionate about what you are supporting, and they may invest in that fundraiser. So think about that. We have a new resource for you, and it's called Then and Now. And I gave you the link. It's Kiwanis.org/then and now. And basically, it is a game that you can play in your club meeting. And it's basically just before the pandemic and after the pandemic, and things, how things have changed. And this is a great PowerPoint that you can do with an virtual club meeting. And club secretaries all received a printed version of this game in their general mailing. So they have this ready for when your clubs start meeting in person. I've gotten the 2-minute warning to questions and answers. And I know you guys will probably be putting those questions in the chat feature. I do have one more slide. And I just want to remind you that May is traditionally membership month in Kiwanis. Now, here's what we've done. On our Facebook group, Kiwanis International Membership Leaders, and you can request, you can search for that group on Facebook, you can request to join. And during the months of March, April, and May, we are talking about membership month. Every Monday and Thursday, we are putting up tips. Now, March and April are all about preparing for May. Now, here's the thing. I say that May is traditionally membership month. If May is not a great month for your club, all you have to do is figure out what month would be great and then start planning ahead. Maybe it's July for you. Well, then you use the months of May and June to prepare for that. So check out the group, request to join, and you'll get a lot of great tips. So with that, I want to say thank you for joining me today. I will let our moderators of the questions kind of take over. And if there are any questions out there, I would be happy to answer them until we run out of time.
Hi, Chris. I'm Teresa Freihart. I'm one of the moderators for the questions. We did have several.
Teresa, hang on. Will you take your shared screen off, Chris?
Sure, sorry.
That's all right.
Thank you. All right, so we had one inquiring about SLP membership fees. Is Kiwanis International waiving the SLP membership fees if schools are not holding classes and unable to meet?
Yes, so that is my case with my club. We do need a written correspondence set to member services. That is the best way to track that. We are giving clubs 1 year, what we're calling COVID active, which will be a new status that will be on SLP reports. If your club is in that situation and you have not reported that club yet not meeting, please do so. I saw Mary shake her head right away. Yes, she knows all about it. I would actually refer you to Mary or your specific administrator for the programs to get that all taken care of with member services at Kiwanis.
Excellent, thank you. How about election of officers of an SLP that is not currently meeting? How do you get new officers?
Yeah, so we really haven't talked about that, but hopefully those members, even though they're not officially meeting, they are hopefully planning for the next year. I think that's why it's really important to kind of have a leadership retreat. Again, even if the SLP is not meeting, have a leadership retreat with the new office or the current officers and figure out when the club may start meeting based on the school guidelines and how an election of officers may take place. Generally, their year begins April 1st, but we know that that's not going to happen. We know that a lot of the SLP years will kick off probably August and September when schools go back into session and hopefully again some normalcy will be in place in the school systems.
Great, thank you. What about suggestions for people who are unable or unwilling to meet?
Yeah, so I always, and I've done this a lot with virtual meetings as well, a mentor program. If you can think about that, that would be great. My grandma is almost 101. She'll be 101 in May. And on her 100th birthday, she did her first Zoom session. And I got to see her for the first time this week. And she's still talking about that. How it was just the greatest thing at 100 to learn something new. And so maybe you can pair them with someone, even if they're a little skeptical about another adult possibly coming into their home. Their grandchildren or kids can get them connected to their Kiwanis Club. And they may be a little hesitant at first, but I never thought my grandma would be, looking at a computer, talking to people, but it just re-energized her. And I think that will help. So, think about that. I also know that when we go back into meeting in person, it's going to be difficult for people. I've seen people I haven't seen in the grocery store, and what's the first thing you want to do? Extend your hand. Someone you haven't seen, you just start to hug them, and then there's this almost stop action, like, oh, what am I doing? It's going to be a whole new world when we start really meeting in person. And I know that some people, that's going to scare them. And some people may, if we're still social distancing at 6 feet, some people may feel comfortable at 10 feet. And you have to respect that. One real quick story about respect. So in the Kiwanis building, we have 2 floors. There are about 17 or 20 of us who are working in the office now of the approximate 100. The first floor, we're all pretty close. And we tend to congregate in each other's offices. We're close to each other. The second floor, they're like 12 feet apart. And there is nothing wrong with that. But we also know that if someone from the second floor comes down to the first floor, we all have a mask on our desk and we will mask up because we know who is living with an elderly parent or has issues that we need to protect them as well as protecting ourselves. So respect is going to be so important when we start meeting in person.
Excellent, thank you. middle schoolers come to Builders Club ready to build something, where are the Legos? How would you recommend presenting Builders Club in a way that it's more attractive to students and gives them more of an idea of what Builders Club is, and differentiate it or make it stand out from other after-school activities?
So I have been a Key Club advisor. I've been a Builders Club advisor. Of course, I've worked with Circle K all the time. I love Builders Club. I can't believe how they think. And our Builders Club, my club, probably does more service than our Kiwanis Club. They're just amazing. But they think differently. And sometimes you need to rein them in. But I think it's just great to figure out what they're passionate about with this group of students. And then again, just like a Kiwanis Club, rally around a project. So 4 or 5 years ago, my Builders Club had gotten really small, about I'd say 6 or 7 members. And they decided that they wanted to plant trees in the school. And huge service project. Keep Indianapolis Beautiful worked with them. It got out of hand. We're talking like 35 trees for 6 or 7 students to dig holes with. Long story short, we got the entire school involved. These students started learning how to plant trees. I learned stuff about planting trees. I'm a farm boy and I learned stuff about planting trees. And it actually was an informal membership drive, because these other kids got excited about a project that they could do for their own community. Or they learned a skill, because everyone learned how to plant a tree. They could go to a local nursery, buy a tree for their front yard, plant it themselves. So I think that that's really important. Even if you have just a core group of people, let that enthusiasm spread organically.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. What about, here's one question that usually comes back to us, but what about people, clubs who are, they're always the old fear of change, even when it, knocks them in the head, because things do need to be changed, and especially now going back into it to get everybody engaged, and even people who weren't able to be involved in the projects during the day. How do we engage these people and make those changes we need when we still have that old fear of change?
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I preach change all the time, and there are some things that change does really scare me about. Everyone is afraid of change. But change can be a great thing. And one of the things that I talk about in service and fundraising, if every member thought about one small tweak that could be made to a service project or a fundraiser, does it cost anything to make that tweak? It doesn't make the project any harder, but does it make a bigger impact? And I think that that's the key question is, does the change make a bigger impact? And this past year in the pandemic, my Kiwanis Club said, we can't shop for our kids this year at the holiday time. And I kept saying, why not? We can make this work. And we implemented a lot of changes. And instead of shopping for our normal 20 to 25 kids, we shopped for 72 kids this year during the pandemic. And we did that because, and I'm just saying, I just kept going on change, but my other members were suggesting other things as well. But I started it. I said we were going to do it. And again, we went from 20 to 25 to 72 kids this year.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I just have one last question. Someone would like to know, where did the statistic 13 hours a day of computer time come from?
That's from the Nielsen Corporation. Nielsen ratings used to, or they still do TV ratings, but they've moved on to the online platform. So those two statistics I gave were from Nielsen.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and addressing all the questions. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Chris. And everyone, if your questions weren't answered, we plan to have 15 minutes after the governor and the president, international president speak. If you want to stay on to just ask any questions that you might not have been able to get answered, these PowerPoints and the website, Kiwanis International website is so robust. I can't tell you how many things I find on there that help me every day. So I hope you will become more familiar with that. And you can also Google Missouri, Arkansas Kiwanis, get to our website, and that's where you'll find a lot of this information after the sessions. So we have one more session and they've all been fabulous. I can't